While you were watching the news, you were being robbed. Between 2018 and 2020, the entire world was fixated on the trade war between the United States and China. It was the perfect drama. We were told this was a battle for the soul of the American economy, a fight to bring jobs home, to punish Beijing, and to stop the rise of a rival superpower. Politicians on both sides of the aisle pounded the table, promising to get tough on China. But while they were shouting on TV, the real power players were doing something completely different. During those exact same years, at the very height of the political tension, American financial giants, led by BlackRock, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs, quietly moved $1.4 trillion into Chinese markets. They weren't fighting China, they were funding it. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad timing. It was a calculated move based on a 300-year-old cycle that predicts the death of the American empire. And if you don't understand how this cycle works, you are the one who will be left paying the price. The mechanism, the 4-stage cycle of collapse. To understand why American banks are betting on China against their own country, you have to understand the life cycle of a financial empire. It is not chaotic, it is mathematical. History shows us it always happens in 4 precise stages. Stage 1 is the monopoly. The elites create a central bank, like the Bank of England or the Federal Reserve, to establish a monopoly on printing money. This gives them absolute control over the economy. Stage 2 is expansion. They use that money printer to fund government expansion, massive social programs, and wars. This creates a temporary boom, making the empire feel invincible. Stage 3 is overextension. The debt becomes unpayable. The government loses control. To keep the system alive, they debase the currency, printing more and more money just to pay the interest on old debts. This triggers inflation and destroys the middle class. And then comes stage 4. This is the phase we are in right now. The architects of the system, the bankers and the elite, realize the collapse is mathematically inevitable. They know the currency is doomed. So, what do? They don't go down with the ship. They take their wealth and move it to the next rising power. They liquidate the old empire to build the new one. We've seen this exact movie before. In the 1800s, Great Britain was the undisputed center of the world. The British pound was the global reserve currency. But by the early 20th century, Britain was drowning in debt from wars and imperial overreach. Did British bankers stay loyal to the crown? No, they saw the writing on the wall. They moved their capital across the ocean. British money funded the American railroads. British money built the U.S. steel industry. They financed their own replacement. By the time the British pound finally collapsed in 1931, wiping out the savings of ordinary British citizens, the smart money had already left London. They were sitting comfortably in New York penthouses. They didn't lose their fortunes, they just changed their address. And today, Wall Street is doing the exact same thing to us. Let's look at the smoking gun. June 1st, 2018. Just weeks before the first U.S. tariffs on China went into effect, a company called MSCI made a critical under-the-radar change. MSCI controls the indexes that global pension funds, 401ks, and endowments track. On that day, they decided to include Chinese A-shares in their Emerging Markets Index for the first time. This was the trigger. It forced trillions of dollars of your retirement money to automatically invest in Chinese companies. BlackRock aggressively promoted this shift. JP Morgan rushed to open a majority-owned securities business in China. Goldman Sachs expanded its footprint overnight. While the U.S. government was publicly attacking China's economy, U.S. banks were effectively force-feeding it capital. They increased China's weight in these investment funds from 0% to over 40% in just a few years. They were building the financial infrastructure of their new host. Why would they do this? Because they can do the math. The U.S. national debt is over $36 trillion. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet has exploded from less than $1 trillion to over $7 trillion. The U.S. dollar has lost 98% of its purchasing power since we left the gold standard in 1971. The system is mathematically insolvent. Wall Street knows the dollar's reign is ending. They aren't betraying America in their eyes. They are simply executing stage 4. They are transferring the wealth from the dying host to the new parasite. The trade war was theater. The political arguments are a distraction to keep you looking the other way. The reality is that the financial capital of the world is being moved right under our noses. Just like the British elite abandoned the pound for the dollar, the American financial elite are hedging against the dollar by building up the yuan. They have their lifeboats ready. The question is, do you?